Hey everyone, so today I'm going to be showing you how you can read friendship bracelet patterns, and this one is friendship bracelet pattern number 24 on friendship-bracelets.net. The first thing you want to look at is what the finished pattern will look like. Each of these little colours represent a string. On this particular website they are labelled with a letter. Today I'm going to be referring to each separate string with their colour. So, as we can see, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 strands. And if you want your pattern to look like this, then we use 8 different colours. Now here's the fun part, you don't have to follow the pattern exactly in terms of colour, you can have each 2 colours being the same colour and that will just make each zigzag look a little bit thicker. But we can get onto that later on. Okay, so we need to understand what each arrow means. Now this particular pattern uses both the forward and backward knot, as well as the forward backward and the backward forward knot. So we'll start with the forward knot, which is an arrow going in the forward direction. A backward knot is an arrow going in the backwards direction. So forward, 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 backward, backward, backward. It might be easier if you're a beginner to use a pattern that uses just the forward and the backward knots to help familiarise yourself with what each arrow represents. Now we're going to go for the forward backward knots and the backward forward knots. This here is a forward backward knot, and this is a backward forward knot, and you can decipher between the two by looking at the initial direction the arrow is going in. So it starts off going in a forward direction, as you can see, so it's forward, forward, and then it turns on itself and goes backward, so that's a forward backward knot. A backward forward knot is the exact opposite, so it starts going in the backwards direction like this one, and then it turns and goes in the forward direction, so that's a backward forward knot. So this whole row is a row of backward forward knots. This whole row is a row of forward knots, another row of forward knots, another row of forward knots, this row is a row of forward backward knots, and then finally a row of backward knots. So what you want to do is, as the diagram shows, your two first strings together and do a backward forward knot. Put those 2 strings aside, take your next 2 and do another backward forward knot with these 2 strands. Put those 2 strands aside, do another backward forward knot with those 2 strands. Put those 2 strands aside and do another backward forward knot with those 2 strands. And you've just completed your first row. Now for your second row, the pattern indicates that we leave out the 2 outermost strands, like this. So we're taking our first 2, bearing in mind we've just left out our outermost strand, and as the pattern indicates we're going to do a forward knot. Now like before, we're going to put those 2 strings aside, take our next 2 and do a forward knot with those 2. Take our next 2, put those 2 strands aside, take our next 2 and do a forward knot with those 2. And you should be left with 1 strand because that's the outermost strand that we left to the side. Now as this pattern indicates, we bring all of our strands back in, we don't leave any out on this row. We're going to take our 2 first strands and do a forward knot, put those to the side. Take the next 2, do another forward knot, put those to the side. Take our next 2, do another forward knot, put those to the side. Take our last 2 and do a forward knot and put those to the side. Now as the pattern indicates, again we want to leave our 2 outermost strands to the side. So on this pattern it's the blue string and the orange strand. Or whichever are your 2 outermost strands, just leave those out. Take your first 2 regardless of the outermost strand and do a forward knot, put those to the side. Take the next 2, do a forward knot, put those to the side. Take the next 2 and your last 2 and do another forward knot. And you should be left with 1 strand, which is your outermost strand. For the next row, bring them all in because the pattern indicates that we don't leave 1 out. This time, as you can see, we're going to do a forward backward knot. So we're going to do a forward backward knot, put those 2 to the side, take our next 2, do a forward backward knot, put those 2 to the side, take our next 2, do a forward backward knot, put those 2 to the side, take our next 2 and do a forward backward knot. Now we're on to our last row of the pattern. And as the pattern indicates, you want to leave the 2 outermost strands out to the side as before. We're going to take our first 2 strands, regardless of our outer 2, and we're going to do a backward knot this time. Take those to the side, take our next 2 and do a backward knot. Put those to the side and take our last 2 and do a backwards knot. And then you should have 1 left out. As you can see, we've now just completed our first pattern, As you can see, we've just completed our first pattern. Now what you want to do is repeat this all again using the exact same pattern starting from the beginning. So we're going to take our strands, which would be here, and we're going to do a backward forward knot. Now of course the colours will be different this row. So that's how you read friendship bracelet patterns. I hope this helped you, and if it did, don't forget to give this video a big thumbs up and request friendship bracelet pattern tutorials that you want to see from me in the future, and I will see you in my next video. Bye guys!